Now we're getting to the good stuff. Now we're getting to like the Beatles doing the creative stuff. We got Rubber Soul. I mean, what can be said about Rubber Soul? It's one of the best. I mean, okay, it's not brilliant, but it's great. I mean, you know, this is where the Beatles start the creative period. I mean, at this time, of course, 1965, Bob Dylan is out with his folk scene, and of course the Beatles thought, you know what, let's do a folk album of some sort. So we got Drive My Car, a really good classic. Norwegian Wood. I like that song. I can never say that for some reason. Norwegian Wood is a really good one. He's a nowhere man. I love that song. That's a really good one. If I Need Someone, again, another George Harrison track. That's a pretty good one. And of course, this is a really good album. I mean, this has, in my opinion, one of my favorite songs. Probably my favorite song, period, is a cross between this song and another song for a later album, which we'll discuss. And of course, I'm talking about In My Life. I mean, every time I listen to that song, I don't know, I mean, my heart just, it's just an interesting listen. I don't know, I get affected by this song. I don't know why, I just do. It's just a really good song. I mean, you know. So yeah, I like Rubber Soul. In fact, I think this is actually George Harrison's favourite album by the Beatles, I think. Funny enough. I'm going to give this one another 8 out of 10. Now we get into Revolver. Many people consider this to be one of the greatest Beatles album of all time, and you can see why. By this point, psychedelia is about to happen. Its popularity is appeared out of nowhere, and now people are experimenting with music. And I mean, you know, it's a great album when it starts with a George Harrison song. 'Cause I'm the tax man, yeah, I'm the tax man, you know, Eleanor Rigby, a classic. Of course, everyone's favourite song, We All Live in a Yellow Submarine, Yellow Submarine, Yellow Submarine. Okay, I think you get the idea. This is the problem, you see, because I'm a Beatles fan. I know all the almost all of the lyrics. It's just really good. The song I think really stands out on this album is Tomorrow Never Knows. I mean, let's be honest, folks. That is one of the greatest songs of all time. I mean, you listen to that, and you're like, whoa, what's going on here? I mean, that must have been something for a Beatles fan to listen to. You know, they must have been shocked when they heard this. Like, what is this music? I'm gonna give this album a 9 out of 10 because I'm generous. It's just a really good album. Then we get to this album. I mean, what could be said about Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band? It's one of the greatest, most successful selling albums of all time. It's considered by many to be the ultimate Beatles album, and while I disagree with that, I love this album. I mean, ever since I listened to this, oh snap, can't, oh shit, bloody hell, I made a mistake. I hope you can see that. The brand new 50th anniversary remix. Honestly, this is one I recommend. I don't usually do these kind of things, but this is the one you want to get. It's just really good remix. Before that remix, I like Sgt. Pepper, but I always consider it kind of low. I always put it low. But after listening to that, I've changed my mind. It's a great album. I mean, you got so many good songs. You get Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, the best opener to an album, With a Little Help from My Friends, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, Getting Better, Fixing a Hole, She's Leaving Home. I mean, I was never a fan of She's Leaving Home before that remix. I mean, the problem was, I think, if I remember right, I think the stereo was more slower compared to the mono, which was a bit quicker, and honestly, it shows. I mean, I really like that song now. I mean, I didn't used to back when I first heard it, but I love it. Being for the benefit of Mr. Kite, it's probably I've probably said this before, it's my least favourite Beatles song. I think it's the worst song ever, period. And that's shocking, because I like the Beatles, but this is one of the most shittest songs I've ever heard. With and You and Without You, that's a George Harrison song, kind of the Indian classical sound, and I love it. I mean, I don't know, I just love listening to that, you know. you get to where George Harrison got his influence from. You just listen to it and you think, wow, this is really good. When I'm 64, I'm still not going to get into it. I know a lot of people like this song. I can't get into it. I'm sorry. It's just my least favourite song. Lovely Rita. Ah, lovely, lovely Rita. I just love that song. Good morning, good morning. Again, it's a really crap song. I don't know, the problem is I'm just no fan of the dogs, like the sound effects of the dogs. It just kind of irritates me. And then you got the reprise of Sgt. Pepper, which I actually prefer more than the first version. I don't know, I think because with this, the reprise, you get more of a, the epic guitar riff at the beginning. It's just, I just wish it was longer. That's the only downside. I wish it was a bit longer. And then the last song, A Day in the Life. What could be said about A Day in the Life? I mean, you listen to that and you're like, and then you get into A Day in the Life. What could be said about A Day in the Life? It's just the best closing track to an album by Lennon and McCartney. I think it's probably the best song they written. I personally think it's just, I mean, every time we get to that the orchestra bit, I just jump and get like very intense inside listening to that. I know that sounds a bit bizarre, but I just love that song. I mean, Sgt. Pepper is such a great album. What can be said about it? And now we get into everyone's favourite album that many even say might actually be better than Sgt. Pepper. Of course, I'm talking about The Magical Mystery Tour is here to take you away. No? Am I the only one who likes that album? Oh, well. I like The Magical Mystery Tour. Yes, I know it wasn't an album when it was released in the UK. I know it was an EP, and I think it was only an album in like North America, but it's just fantastic. I mean, I love that album. I used to listen to that more than Sgt. Pepper. I mean, come on, you got The Magical Mystery Tour, The Fool on the Hill. I was never going to say Hula, but Hill. Oh man, my tongue, I don't know what's wrong with it. I mean, I am the walrus, I am the Eggman, good chew, good song. Hello, Goodbye, Strawberry Fields Forever, and Penny Lane. And of course, the penultimate song, well, the last song, All You Need Is Love. Da, 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 da. All you need is love. Da, 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 da. All you need is love. Love. Love is all you need. I mean, what could be said? Great tune, man. Magical Mystery Tour, again, a 9 out of 10. It's just a great album. I like it more than Sgt. Pepper. Please don't come to my house and break it down, please. And then we get into another album, the White Album. I mean, how lazy is that? They don't even bother name the title. They just call it the White Album. See what I did there? No. The White Album. This is an interesting one. This is basically the Beatles breaking up point. I mean, by this point, the Beatles aren't talking to each other. Ringo left for a period, then comes back, and it's not pleasant. I like the album, but listening to it again, I don't think it's the best. I mean, you can tell because, I don't know, it's just, there's something off-putting about it. I think probably because all the Beatles aren't around. All of them are basically doing their own thing. They're performing solo, which is, a bit of a shame. Tracks are like Back in the USSR, Dear Prudence, Glass Onion, Obledi, Olada, oh fuck's sake, I've ruined the song, but you get what I mean. I really like that song. Someone I read actually dislike it. How? It's fun. I love it so much. While My Guitar Gently Weeps is a good one. Happiness is a Warm Gun. What else do I like? I'm So Tired. Blackbird. Love that song. Peggy's is a pretty interesting one. Rocky Raccoon, which I think was named after George Harrison's Fender Stratocaster with the psychedelic design, Don't Pass Me By Ringo Starr. I think that's a really good one. I think that's one of Ringo's best vocal songs. Why don't we do it on the road? McCartney, I love that one. Blues. I'm not really a fan of the blues, but I really like that track for some reason. Although I do prefer the one John Lennon performs with Eric Clapton. Keith Richards and Mitch Mitchell from the Jimi Hendrix Experience. I like that one better. I think it was like from a Rolling Stones special, but I like that better than the Beatles version. That's just my opinion. Helter Skelter, I mean, that is just a bizarre song, and I love it. Of course, if you guys in the Doctor Who fandom know who Ronan Goron is, this is actually his favourite Beatles album, and I don't think he's going to like me for saying this, but I'm going to give this album an 8 out of 10. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. I mean, I like it, but even I admit there are some flaws, and I do agree with George Martin. Had this been like a single album, I think it would have been better. That's my opinion. Now, Ronan, please don't come to my house and try and kill me. I'm sorry. I just not a fan of this album, man. Yellow Submarine, the soundtrack to the film. It's alright, you know. It's a soundtrack album. Most of them, actually, it's odd because it feels like a best-of compilation and a soundtrack album combined into one. So the tracks I like are Hey Bulldog, All Together Now, Only a Northern Song. I think that's probably my favourite from this album. And the second side is not my favourite. It's mainly, I think it's only composed by George Martin, you know. I just can't get into it. I can't get into the George Martin orchestrated stuff, probably because I haven't listened to it much. I only prefer the first side, where it's just the Beatles songs. In terms of a rating, I'm just going to give it a 6 out of 10. Sorry, but that's just my honest thoughts. But then we get to 1969. By this point, the Beatles were seriously having enough. They really cannot do it. And so, after a failed attempt at making an album called Get Back, they decided to do an album that would end the Beatles' legacy. And that album was 1969's Abbey Road. In my opinion, this is my favourite Beatles album. It's my number one favourite. I'm not sure if I'm ever going to do a review, but I mean, what could be said about Abbey Road? It's just an amazing album. I think it's the best goodbye album. It's the farewell album. It's the best one. It's based on them saying, you know, man, there's so many good tracks. What could be said? I mean, Come Together, Something, which I believe was Frank Sinatra's favourite song. Oh Darling, Octopus's Garden, I Want You, She's So Heavy. That is one of the most heaviest rock songs, and it's really great. Here comes the sun, do-do-do-do. Here comes the sun, and I say she's alright, do-do-do-do-do. Alright, I'm sorry, but I can't help it because You Never Give Me Your Money and The Sun King, also known as the Albatross ripoff. I mean, let's be honest. I like the song, but let's be honest, it was a ripoff of Fleetwood Mac's Albatross. Even the band admitted that they were influenced by that song. Well, no, not rip-off, influence. I mean, Jesus Christ, I'm turning into the haters now. Me, Mr. Mustard, Polythene Pam, I can never say that right. But they're all good. I mean, my least favourite song is probably Maxwell's Silver Hammer. That's probably my least favourite. I'm sorry, I just never. But it's a great album. But really, again, what made this album really good are the last songs. Golden Slumbers, Carry That Weight, and The End. In my opinion, remember earlier when I said Nowhere Man? No, not Nowhere Man. In My Life was my favourite, and I said there's another song that's also my favourite. Well, this is the one, and honestly, I think I've changed my mind. You know what? Golden Slumbers, Carry That Weight, and The End. That is probably my favourite Beatles song. You get Golden Slumbers, you have Paul McCartney's brilliant vocals. On Carry That Weight, you get the brilliant guitar work by George Harrison. I think it's George Harrison. But the great thing about that song is, for the first time, all of the members of the Beatles, including Ringo Starr, I think it's the only song to have all four of them sing together. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, and then you get The End. I mean, you know, and the end. You know, I just love that. I mean, they're just a real, I mean, what can be said? It's just a great way to end the album. I mean, I love it. You know what? And the rating, I'm going to give this album a solid 10 out of 10. I'm sorry. It's just my personal favourite album. If I was forced to live on an island far away from Scotland and I had to pick one album, I definitely would pick Abbey Road. apart from maybe Pecking Pink Floyd, but Abbey Road is just the best album. Oh boy, this bloody album, Let It Be. Now I know there's some people like it, but me, I can't stand Let It Be. I mean, from Abbey Road, where it was a good farewell album, this album is basically saying, you like Abbey Road? Well, fuck you, we're gonna ruin the Beatles ending and have this shit album. I mean, the problem with this album is it feels like a demo album for Abbey Road, and it's not a really good one, and you can see why the band abandoned it in the first place. I mean, why? I mean, it's just really bad. I mean, the only songs I do like from this album, I, Me, Mine by George Harrison, that's the only good one. Let It Be, I mean, how can you not have Let It Be? That's a good song. The Long Winding Road, The Long and Winding Road, and Get Back. That's the only 4 tracks I like from that album. But it doesn't help the album. It's just terrible. The production is really bad. Like, really bad. Even worse than bloody Please Please Me. Now, if I remember right, I think most of this was like for the film. I mean, now, I don't mind the film Let It Be. I like the film Let It Be. Honestly, it's just, I can't stand this album. And honestly, I feel like, actually, who was that producer? Did George Martin produce it? Alright, he produced the original mixing, but then they pick Phil fucking Spencer. Phil fucking Spencer. Out of all the producers they picked, why did they pick the most fucking shittest producer in music history? I'm not a Phil Spector fan, and honestly, to me, it doesn't feel like a Beatles album, mainly because it doesn't have George Martin producing it. I mean, you know it's not a Beatles album when George Martin's not producing it, you know? It's just a really bad album. If you like this album, that's good for you. I just can't stand it. I just think it's a big, massive insult to you after listening to Abbey Road. So, I'm going to give this album, a lot of people are going to kill me. I'm giving it a 4 out of 10 because I really cannot stand that. So that's it, really. That's all of the albums by the Beatles. Is there anything else I could talk about? Compilations. Of course, there is the Red and Blue albums, or is it the other way around? But basically, they're really good. The Past Masters, that is a really important one. You want to get that one. Basically, that album's like a compilation of the singles that weren't released on the albums. That's a good one because it has all the good tracks like Day Tripper and Rain, that good song. You know, it's just a really good compilation. The Beatles Anthology, that's an interesting one, but honestly, you want to get something like Sergeant Pepper. You want to wait for these new remixes, which has the studio sessions, because on Anthology series they kind of edited and it's a bit shit. Let's be honest. One, I forgot nearly the album One that was released in 2000, I think. But I really recommend you get the Blu-ray or DVD set that was released in 2015. Just really good. The remix is just amazing. I think that's it. And then live albums, well, I don't really... The Beatles aren't that great as a live act. I prefer them more as a studio act, to be honest. I guess Live at the Hollywood Bowl, that's a pretty interesting one. So yeah, that's it. Sorry if I'm rambling on. There's probably some mistakes, and this is probably why it's edited heavily. But yeah, I just want to talk about the Beatles, man, because I love the Beatles. They're one of the greatest bands. They are my number one favorite band, and I hope you enjoy this. What are your favorite Beatles albums? Did you agree with me, or did you not agree with me and think I'm an absolute idiot and I should really know my stuff and I'm not a true Beatles fan? That was good timing with that creak. So yeah, I've been Blair Harrison. You've been watching my discography review of the Beatles' discography review. But oh my god, I can't even get to the title right. That's how you get what I mean. You know what you've been watching. So I'll see you next time for another video. Take care, folks.